Well, hello, folks. It is Wednesday, the 9th of November, 2022, about 1:30 in the afternoon. So, a couple of days ago, on Monday, I posted a video in which I read Psalm 146 and kind of pressed the point of do not trust in princes. That was my message as we were looking at election day here, the midterm election that has now happened last night. Of course, I'm still interested in that stuff and keeping an eye on it because we're watching the story of Babylon play out before our eyes, and I do find that fascinating. And I'll admit, despite my own counsel in the video 2 days ago, I found myself a little bit bummed last night as I began to see what they were calling or forecasting as a red wave become sort of a red swell, or as some have put it, a red trickle. But that's not because I wasn't bummed about that because I'm some sort of that I have Republican attachments with my heart or anything like that. That's not it. It's that I was hoping that God was going to give America yet one more reprieve for a little while, but it looks like He's chosen not to do that, and so I think that's going to be bad news for this country. It is good news, however, for Him because all He does is always good for His kingdom. But still, it's not going to be good for America. And here's what I mean by that. For one thing, you notice there's a listlessness now all across with everything. Neither Democrats nor Republicans really came out of this with any kind of anything like a triumph, right? Nobody really won or anything like that. Everybody's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, that happened, and oh, and then that happened. Oh wow, look, that happened. But there's nothing that anyone really is celebrating today in any major way. And that kind of brings me to look at it this way. You could look at all these different things that, all these Trump-backed candidates that were rejected, essentially, and see that as sort of a rejection of Donald Trump. And that might be true. It probably is true in a lot of ways. You could say, well, abortion turned out to be a much bigger deal than a lot of people thought it was going to be. And maybe other culture war things like transing the kids, as a lot of the conservative guys are calling it, rightly. That isn't as big a deal to people as they thought it was going to be. All that kind of thing. Maybe not. That all of that's in play. This is the biggie to me. To me, the Democratic Party has hitched itself to wickedness in so many different ways, and then the Biden administration has, over these 2 years, pretty much turned everything it's touched into garbage. Everything is just a gigantic mess, and everyone knows it. And yet, people turned out and voted blue in so many different ways, and I find that fascinating because what it suggests to me is, in fact, to me it's quite clear, it's not that God might judge America, it's that He has. And here's one of the things you can see here. Take a look at these people right here, okay? This is pointed out in 2016 when it was these two here, okay, that we're a country of 330 million people, and this is what we come to. This is the best we can do, is these clowns. And look, it hasn't gotten any better. These are the people who've been on the national leadership scene now for a number of years, and out of 330 million people, this is what we get. And how is that? Well, sometimes, as I have said many times, God will sometimes judge people, or with His own people, He will take them through a process of painful learning by giving them what they want. Okay, and this is an interesting thing. Take a look at this. Joshua 11, 19 and 20, we see this. Well, let's go back to verse 18. Joshua waged war a long time with all these kings. There was not a city which made peace with the sons of Israel, except the Hivites living in Gibeon. They, that is Israel, took them all in battle. For it was of Yahweh to harden their hearts and meet Israel in battle, in order that He might utterly destroy them, that they might receive no mercy, but that He might destroy them, just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Okay, notice this too. 1 Samuel 2:25. Here we have Eli talking to his horrible sons, Phinehas and Hophni, And he says this. This is 1 Samuel 2:24 and 25. No, my sons, for the report is not good, which I hear Yahweh's people circulating. If one man sins against another, God will mediate for him. But if a man sins against Yahweh, who can intercede for him? Get this. But they would not listen to the voice of their father, for Yahweh had desired to put them to death. What can explain that a phenomenon like this, that with all of this ruin, all of this disaster that is very clear from the last couple of years, an economy in chaos and everything, all of it, and yet so many people will continue to vote in a way that will protect the people who've done that and give them encouragement for more and everything else. What could possibly explain that in a free democracy, so many voters would vote themselves such hurt? What explains it? But that God seeks to destroy them. And so he makes them want to vote that. Some people will criticize this point of view, but I really believe it's true. I think the way this country is going down under God's judgment because of what we have done in the name of freedom for a very, very, very long time, in many ways since the very beginning of this country. What's going on? Well, this is just like all the other nations in history. It's under judgment. And because we're so proud of our right to vote and our great democracy, that is exactly the vehicle that God is using to bring about our ruin. We're going to vote ourselves into the pit. Well, on that cheery note, but this is the good news is, though, of course, that while America loses, God wins. It's always God wins. When he judges the nations and he brings upon them destruction, it is for his glory. And, hey, Christian folks, it's going to bring about situations in which the gospel of Jesus is going to be heard freshly with new ears in many, many, many cases. So let us thank our Lord and worship this God who moves, in whose hand the king's heart is like channels of water that he just directs as he wants. All right, we'll see you later.